Hi, I'm Prabhat Gautam. I'm here with Jenny Goldfarb, Mrs. Goldfarb of Mrs. Goldfarb's Unreal Deli. Welcome.
Hi, Prabha. Thank you.
So I'm so excited to spend some time with you. I get to learn about your journey.
Thank you.
So for the people out there that don't know, Mrs. Goldfarb's Unreal Deli, you have all these deli slices, deli meats, and how many stores, locations are you in today?
We're in about 1,000 doors, and before the end of the year, it'll be over 2,000.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're going to get to all of that soon because we need to know your whole journey. But I want to start with, where was Mrs. Goldfarb born?
Mm-hmm.
And when you were a little kid, what was sort of your aspiration for your life goals?
Totally. So, born in New York City, New York, at NYU Medical, right there in the heart of Manhattan, but only lived in New York about 6 months before my parents thought it'd be a nice, easy breezy life in South Florida. So they moved down to Miami. And in my early years, my mom got me involved in so many different activities, everything from Girl Scouts to modeling and acting to softball were like some of my favorite things. And so I had this kind of like Renaissance existence as a little kid where I was doing a lot of different things, and I loved that. And it's interesting, as a very young one, I did some reports saying that I wanted to be a cook, a baker, things like this as I grew up. And so it took many years off from any of that before I kind of circled back to that, it turned out.
It's amazing. And then you go on to George Washington University, right?
Yep.
And when you're there, I was reading about you, where you were on this journey where you kind of found your roots, your heritage.
Yeah.
So what happened during your GW years?
So yeah, I grew up Jewish, but like barely culturally Jewish, like less than Reform, like just, bagels, lox, Seinfeld, that was Judaism.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to college, I met a couple of rabbis and had a couple friends that were interested in like real Judaism. And I was like, well, what is real Judaism? Because all I know is Seinfeld. And that's great, by the way, but it's not really what this is. And so I wound up getting so inspired by the little bit that I was learning that I decided that after I graduated college, I wanted to spend a year living in Jerusalem, fully immersed, learning a lot of this, like these mystical teachings behind the Torah and Kabbalah, and really just like refine my spiritual muscle that I never even knew existed before that.
And then right after college, what's your next step in your life?
I wind up, I do this year in Jerusalem, and it filled me up so much, but after a while I was like running out of money, needed to work, needed to like get back on track for real life. And so I wound up moving back to New York, and I got a job, believe it or not, at a pharmaceutical firm where I was doing marketing work, but it showed me firsthand how the pharmaceutical industry works and kind of like what Band-Aid medicine is all about, so that people can like have their cake and eat it too and just take this insulin injection. And it showed me a little bit of what the medical industry was like, but wasn't getting any deeper to the medical industry. It was also around this time that because of all of this spiritual nourishment, I wanted to share it. And so I was having big Shabbat meals at my little apartment in Chelsea in Manhattan. And I'd invite 20 and 30 people over, and I'd cook up these big meals. And this was way before I was vegan, but it gave me a love of cooking. And it made me familiar in the kitchen, so when I, years later, got interested in plant-based foods, it didn't feel so scary to me to get all these new kinds of cookbooks and delve into new corners of the grocery store. So I give that kind of piece of my journey a lot of credit into what's later come.
That's amazing. And then after that,
You're
you find
amazing.
yourself... No, you're amazing. So you find your way to Los Angeles, right?
I did, yeah.
At some point on your journey.
Yep.
And then tell us, like, from there, your entrepreneurial work, like,
Yeah.
how did that all happen where, good Jewish girl from New York, Florida, ends up starting this massive food business that's where people are watching today. Like, you said recently just got announced, now you're in Publix. So that's this giant new chain that you're in. And you just, every time I talk to you, there's something new, something big. Restaurants, you're in Veggie Grill, like, it keeps growing. So, but where did that all start?
Keeps growing.
Side?
So I was living in New York, and then I found out about this really handsome guy that lived in LA. After some, back and forth long distance, we realized we were like real soulmates. I moved out here to be with him. And so I guess it was something, drinking the California Kool-Aid or something. But my husband, my young husband at the time, had one friend, and this guy was already vegan, and he was posting videos on Facebook of like what's really happening in these slaughterhouses. And like, God bless him for that, because I don't have the courage to post that. I consume it, I watch it, I cry from it, but I don't share it because I just don't know where people's readiness is. But the truth is, he might have not known that either, and he might have lost a lot of friends, but he influenced me. And so I credit him to this day. But anyway, he posted just one video one time that I wound up seeing that I watched of, you know, some undercover slaughterhouse animal farming footage, and it broke my heart into a million pieces. I was just in a state of shock from what I'd seen, and it sent me on a journey of a couple of years where I watched a lot of undercover investigations, documentaries, and really schooled myself into animal agriculture and what's even happening on kosher farms, grass-fed farms, local farms, you know, quote-unquote happy farms, and how devastating that reality actually is. And for these 2 years, I tried to say, okay, we're only going to eat eggs from this one corner, you know, neighbor, whatever. We're going to only
The most
eat
humane meat you
the
could
most
find.
humane.
Yeah.
And then I learned what a sham even that was, and,
Yeah.
and wound up taking my family pretty painstakingly, because that husband of mine is a very meat and potatoes guy, at least he was, and I had little toddler kids at the time that only wanted, you know, mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. And so I really painstakingly learned how to cook from the produce and grains aisles.
It's amazing. When you think about it, right? Like the person you were then, you were a really good person, right? Your husband's a good person, the kids are good people. And then you become conscious. So it's not that you went from not good people to good people. You were already good people, but you realize there's this public story, this lie really that's told. And then you now discover, like it's, you know, you look in the looking glass, you see a whole different world.
Totally.
And then what happens to your relationship with your family? Like, are they thinking you've gone crazy, now you're...
So they definitely thought I was like on some crazy vegan hippie crusade, and I was looking to take everyone with me, which I was and am. But I'll say that it was really my in-laws that were just the most like vehemently anti. And so when I made, I hope I'm not skipping ahead, but when I made this corned beef for the first time, as just my own answer for my own family to have a good deli sandwich, when my in-laws tasted it and they said, this is amazing. I would have thought this was real meat. This is like the best deli sandwich I ever had. That's when I knew I was onto something, because they were such haters about the lifestyle, really. So that gave me actually a lot of encouragement, and I credit them in my story.
That's great. So,
Yeah.
so when you start making it, right, you make it for friends.
Yep.
What happens? Like, what's the reaction? And then for you, like, was part of you thinking, oh, I want to start a food company, or you really just wanted your family to have vegan food options?
So I started this little vegan food blog called Count Your Colors, and to this day there are about 40 recipes up there. They're really nice, various recipes that I had come up with from my plant-based cooking experience. And so countyourcolors.com, I was looking to add new recipes to that once a week. We were making like fun little video blogs with my kids on the countertops helping. It was very cute. And yet it was a bit of a failure. Nothing came of it really. I didn't get any big sponsorships. Nothing like amazing came of it. And so I like to credit that piece of the failure part of my journey, because you never know how something that seems like a failing thing leads to one off corridor, often takes you in a whole nother direction. And so that's exactly what happened. I came up with this corned beef that I thought I was just gonna put on my blog. And when friends and family and strangers and neighbors said, this is the best thing ever, I wouldn't know it was, it's so delicious. Like they were going so over and above in how they were describing it. And they said to me, you should make a business out of this. I'm thinking, I'm gonna make a vegan corned beef business? Like how niche of niche of niche is that, right? But finally they got under my skin, and I wound up emailing our mutual friend Jane Velez Mitchell and Paige Parsons Roche, who works with her. And I said, do you guys know anyone who know any people that have vegan businesses here in LA that I could just bring them a sandwich and pick their brain? And Paige actually introduced me to two of the loveliest people that have a company called Rabbit Hole Foods, and they make these amazing dips and spreads. And when I went out to visit them, I brought them a sandwich and I said, what do you think? And they were like, it's delicious. What do you want to do with it? And I said, well, I'd love to make it and try and sell it. And they said to me, we have a tiny commercial kitchen here. It's $25 an hour. Would you like to rent it? And I said, yes, I'm in commerce. Let's go. And so at that point I was pregnant and I had 2 young kids, so I would drop the 2 young kids off at preschool. I would go to Ralph's, because our local grocery store, I wasn't yet buying in big quantities. I'd buy my beets and my chickpeas and all the little ingredients. I would drive out with my Vitamix to this office. I would cook all the food, clean all the dishes, pick those kids up at preschool, and in the days I wasn't doing that, I would drive around Los Angeles, cold calling and popping into delis. I said to myself, if I can sell this thing at the New York style delis here in LA, and they love it, and we get reorders there, I can sell this thing anywhere. So that was kind of my template to proving the business.
And I know you got into Cantor's, which is a huge, huge place.
Totally.
Like, it was at the moment where you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm accepted. Like, because Cantor's is really famous for meat.
Sure.
Like, it's a meat deli.
Yeah.
And because when I first learned about you was when you got into Cantor's.
Right.
And I was like, who is this woman who broke in? Like, if people that don't know Cantor's, it's like an Outback Steakhouse. Like, it is so kind of well known for being a meat establishment.
Yep.
And once you sort of infiltrated that world, I was like, wow, she's really doing something huge.
Aww.
And in a way, nobody else had done that.
It felt really meaningful to me because these old delis, like, literally haven't put a new item on the menu in like 100 years since they first opened. So to know that we're gonna throw on like a whole new twist onto this classic meat dish felt really personally meaningful to me. So yeah, and there were a couple other smaller delis that we were in before that. Factor's famous deli in Pico Robertson area, and then Art's Deli in Studio City. And they were all ordering like 10, 20 pounds at a time. And then when Mark Cantor said, can you deliver 50 pounds? I was like, of course. You know, then I got in my car and I cried. I couldn't believe I had this huge order.
Yeah.
And of course, since then we have like 30,000 pound orders now. I mean, like 50 is like nothing, you know, but
50 is everything then.
At the time, 50 was everything.
Because it really, I think it both validated you, and it also was like, because what you said before was, when you, it's so much work to just get into one place, right?
Totally.
And then it may work, it may not work. But when they reorder, that's like, wow, people are buying it. Because, you know, the smile might get you in the door.
100%.
But the talent has to, like,
100%.
bring you back.
Yep.
And you can't fake the purchase, right? You can beg your friends to go buy for a day or two.
Totally.
But they're not going to buy enough
That's exactly
to keep
right.
the business going.
And we were buying, but they were also
Yeah.
buying. Other people were
Yeah.
buying. Yeah.
And you encourage everybody,
Right.
but yeah, now you're in 1,000 stores.
Yeah.
You can't up those numbers,
I
fake
don't
those
know any
numbers.
friends.
Like, yeah, you don't have 10 million people.
Right.
And,
Right.
No, but yeah, so that's so amazing. One of the things that I loved about your story was when you would go and pitch to stores,
Yeah.
you would take your youngest, right?
So I have 3 kids now, and it was my middle at the time, because we're going back a couple years. She was like 3, 4 years old, and when I first walked into my first Whole Foods, I walked into my local store, not even like any regional office, just like, here's my store, let's go there. My 3-year-old was home from school, from preschool that day. I had her like in my arms, and I asked for the manager of my local Whole Foods to come down and taste my sandwich while I broke out my iPhone and got a couple moments so that I could then, you know, reach out to the regional office or tell the next guy, look, Whole Foods loves it, you know. So I just trying to like use any little piece of, you know, of getting a good review to like work the next lead. And that's totally what I did in the deli circuit. I got like into one deli, and then I used that to like work it to all the other delis. And now I'm talking to grocery stores. So now that I'm in a 1,200 chain place, it's like, this is how we roll, you know? Anyway.
And you knew taking your child was going to help, right? Like, you know, it's like a lot, because if a woman comes up and she's selling a product to a store, they're like, oh, that's interesting, but you got a child. They're like, well, we're supporting her and her kids. But they also are like, oh, you're a real person. You're not just a sales rep, right?
Right.
They see like who Mrs. Goldfarb is.
I didn't think of all the layers of this.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you have, but yeah, I guess there was something subconscious that I seem not threatening and authentic and all that good stuff, which I was.
And you had one kid, not 2 or 3 with you, so they're like, all right, she's, and it shows that you're mom. Like, and I think that's so much about your brand too. It's like she's the woman in your neighborhood that just happens to be vegan.
Right.
Like, you know, it's. Yeah, so that's so great. Like your whole story. So then let's get to you getting on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
That's where so many people know you from, is your Shark Tank journey.
Right.
How'd you learn about Shark Tank, and then how did you get on there?
Sure. So I was never an avid watcher. I was busy studying Kabbalah. I was not studying up on Laurie Grenier or any of those guys. And so when what happened was, after we were selling to some of the local delis, my husband works in the film industry, and he's like, you know what would be cool if you could start to sell to the movie studio lots, because once you're on the studio lots, it's like a good rap to everyone else. Everyone thinks that's cool. I said, okay, great. So I reached out on LinkedIn, just cold, to Fox Studios, got a quick response. They sat me down in like a big boardroom. I got to give I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe this story. Anyway, they took it on, and then Netflix also took it on. So I was driving home from the Netflix offices. I'm on the 101 driving home in the Valley in Los Angeles, and I get a phone call because I had submitted a like 30-second Shark Tank web application. Because now that I'm getting into the big movie studios, I'm like, well, let's get on some TV while I'm in the movie studio. So anyway, put in the quick web application, driving home from Netflix, I get a call, casting director, oh, can you speak now? Absolutely. I said, I'm on the 101, heading home from Netflix, let's chat. So we had a great little conversation. Following that, very serious, super heavy duty application process. They wanted video, they wanted written, they practically took a blood sample. I mean, when I say written, I'm talking about like 450-page handwritten. Finally, got on the show, had the sandwiches all ready for the sharks to eat. Most thrilling experience of my life. Starts off, you give a whole pitch, you know, you start off with your pitch, and then you go into basically like a whole open room where the sharks know nothing about you when you first come out. They only know your first name, so it really is true to form. Like they haven't previously vetted the businesses or anything like that. Anyway, I guess the universe, God, the stars, whatever you want to call it, it was so aligned that it came out beautifully. I didn't get turned down by anyone. No one went out on me. I got one offer from Mr. Wonderful, and then Mark Cuban came in and goes, I love it. I'm going to make this easy. I just went vegetarian, he came out saying for the first time.
Yeah.
And I want to give you more than double the cash you're asking for. And let me just mention, when I went on that show, I only had $10,000 in revenues. That's like nothing.
Wow.
And yet, I was trying to get $100,000 for 10% of the business. He goes, I'll give you $250,000 for 20%. I thought I was going to have to give up 30% for that same 100,000.
Right.
So I walked out like, wow, I can't believe this. Like, I just felt like, a lot of great like inventors and people who, composers, and say like, how did it happen? And a lot of times people will say, I got out of the way, and just sort of like, it flowed through me almost. And that's really how I felt, because I was like, how did that even occur? Anyway, it was like as smooth and sweet as it could have been. And then when it came out on the air, this is like September 2019, we filmed on the air November 2019. It was so amazing. I mean, I had 10,000 in revenues. After that night, I think we had like 80,000 just from the online store, let alone all the restaurants and stores that then wanted to carry us. And then even every night after the show, you're making way more than $10,000 just for the week later, So that was crazy and really put us on the map. And then it allowed me, until still to this day, I can like pick up the phone to anyone and pull out Shark Tank, pull out Mark Cuban, So that's cool as anything. But what I must say is that in November 2019, we were only doing food service, which means restaurants and anywhere you can eat food outside the house, an arena or a stadium or a hospital or anywhere that you eat food outside your home. Concert, yeah. So that was November 2019. In hindsight, that was not the time to get big into food service. So by March of 2020, we had some very big food service deals on the table, including, I said 50 pounds, and then I said 30,000 pounds. So Quiznos, which still has like 400 or 500 locations left, they were testing it in a couple of cities. The test went so well that in January 2020, they offered me a deal for like national expansion, all this. First order, 30,000 pounds, more tiers. By March, there were really tears because they took the whole deal away because the restaurant industry didn't know what was happening. And so it was a very big moment for the business. We could have completely died as a company, and we realized we needed to pivot super fast and get retail ready. Meaning get packaging and labs and certifications and so many things lined up in order to be able to meet the customer where they were when COVID hit. And so now that hopefully COVID is curtailing and that the roaring 20s of restaurant life is back and that grocery is here, and so we're really here for the party at this point. But it was a really rough, couple of months there.
Yeah, and you tell the story about once you found out, that what you thought the Quiznos deal was going to happen was on pause, right?
Yeah.
Then you got news about your father's health, right? So that's a devastating time. Like, the business stuff matters, but then you have this health crisis.
That was for sure the bigger news. So my father is a longtime entrepreneur, which definitely gives me some of the chutzpah to like think I could even do any of this in the first place. And so I've used him as like very much a sounding board, a mentor. In fact, you know, we'd FaceTime most of the day while I'm like sending emails and doing things. We're talking all day. And in March of 2020, we took a trip. He and I both, he's in South Florida with my mom, and I'm here in California. We flew to New York together because I had a couple of interviews and we were coming out in the New York Times and there were some meetings. So we came to meet me. We had a grand old time. This was March 9th through 11th of 2020. Not the time to go to New York City. He flew home from that and got COVID so badly, and it was so much at the beginning. No one knew what the symptoms were. No one knew anything. He wound up on a ventilator for 28 days. Like, everyone was talking about hospital. I mean, it was like he was gone.
Yeah.
And then, like a total miracle, he wound up getting a plasma donation at the last possible second, turned it all around, even came out and had to do rehab for many months and had bed sores. I mean, it got so dark and so bad, but then he has made a completely full recovery. So between the business and my family, I mean, we're back and better than ever, but there were some really rough moments in there.
And when you think about it, it just puts everything in perspective, right? Like,
Totally.
no matter how bad the business deal was,
Exactly.
it's inconsequential. Like, I mean, it matters, but it matters like 1%.
Exactly.
Your father's health.
And it's so crazy,
Yeah.
like how we, you know, just taking like how we take things in and see things as like, is this a big problem or is this just a small inconvenience, you know? Because I remember that same week that the Quiznos deal fell through on like a Monday, Tuesday. On Friday, my dad's like on a ventilator. And I remember thinking like, can we just go back to Monday where those were my biggest problems?
Yeah.
And like, even to realize that like, even when like huge agonizing business and you know, things come up, it's like, all right, we're gonna figure it out. We figured everything else out. You know, you have your people alive in your life, like, just be happy, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the other day when we talked, like, you know, I was a bone marrow donor in 2001, and I always think about, you know, what that experience is. And then the girl died. She was a teenage kid. You think like what her family went through losing their kid, and then it, you know, it was early in my career in Los Angeles, and it's like whatever business deal doesn't work out, or whoever you're dating doesn't work out,
Totally.
it's so minor compared to somebody fighting for their life and somebody passing away. And for you, when I hear the story about your dad,
Right.
like there's nothing, like we're seeing you on your trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
but what will probably always stand out in your story will be the time that your dad was struggling, where you would have probably given up on real and just like anything to save your father's life.
Totally. I remember I write an email to Mark Cuban every Friday,
Yeah.
every single week, and I tell him the events of the week. And I remember that email that week. I called the email Unreal Updates. That's the subject of it every single week. And that week it was called Real Updates. And I was like, I put a picture of me and my dad in. I said, please say a prayer for him. And I was like, I'm out basically. Like, there's no business happening for the next couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And Mark understood, I'm sure, right?
Totally. He was like 1,000, wrote me back in 2 seconds. And obviously, yeah.
I mean, I think you have a unique situation because the episode you're on, Mark Cuban announces, right? Mark Cuban, for people that don't know, I don't know who you are if you don't know who he is, but the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. Hopefully he would have run for president because he
Yeah.
would have been a fine choice. But this really outspoken person,
Yeah.
he announced on your episode was amazing, was he was vegetarian. And that's the first time anybody publicly had ever heard him talk about it.
Right.
They'd known that he's interested in obviously investing in a lot of companies,
Totally.
but nobody knew he was on this plant-based journey until your episode.
Yeah. I didn't know it either, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said it, and I was like, all right, closing that deal. Not only did he make me a great offer, but I also didn't know that he had family that also was from Romania. He said it in my segment, but it didn't make it to air. And just so you know, entrepreneurs are typically on stage for 1 to 2 hours. I think I was up there about 45 minutes. I was a shorter one. And then, of course, they use like 6 minutes. So a lot more is covered than what you see. And so one of the things that I had said was that my great-grandpa immigrated from Romania, escaping persecution. And when he came here, he was a teenager, didn't even speak English, and he works his first job in the Lower East Side deli scene. So he interrupts me and goes, my family too. They were in Romania, they escaped, they worked in the Lower East Side deli scene. And so what's really crazy actually is when I was learning all that Judaism, that deep Torah Judaism in Jerusalem, one of the things that we learn about is reincarnation, which is completely a Jewish principle. And not only is reincarnation real, but that it even works in such a manner that like sometimes there'll be a past life experience where you have to like come back another life to like repay a debt or do a favor for someone or help someone out in some way. And so when I heard that like Cuban. He's also Jewish. He's also from Romania. Also in Lower East Side Deli. Now here, I'm like, somebody owed someone some favors. That's what I always think of that.
Yeah, and then you never know, right? Did your grandfather know his grandfather? Like, was there,
right?
you know, did they both marry two sisters or something?
Right,
like,
yeah.
like you just never know. Or it was one of them mean to the other one.
That's more
right?
likely.
And then
really.
it's more like,
yeah. They had to come back in New York and try and work it out, but they couldn't finish it then. So we're here now on the stage of Shark Tank, working stuff out. You know?
No, it's amazing.
Whatever.
And then one of the things that was amazing from your Shark Tank episode too is when you said the line, which to me just jumped out, was they asked you, well, there's all these VCs, there's all this money, why are you coming to us?
Right.
And you had the line of one VC dollar is equivalent to five. Was that right?
One shark dollar equals
five.
five regular dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the value of like
totally
what the weight that holds to be tied to Shark Tank.
Totally. I actually got that line from another entrepreneur who we had a day where it was like 2 days before the actual shoot day where they had the entrepreneurs come on and we got to meet each other and pitch for like the team. And this woman was saying to me, because we were trying to figure out how to create the right valuation for the company, because like in Shark Tank world, it's like a little bit different than the rest of the world. And she said to me, she goes, it's kind of like one shark dollar is worth two regular dollars. And I don't know, it just came out of my mouth because I said, I've been offered $500,000 for 10%. And they go, well, why would you take our $100,000 if you've been offered $500,000? I said, here's the reason. Sarah from Seriously Slime told me that one this equals that. And anyway, it was a beautiful moment. I didn't even know I like had that in my mental Rolodex, but there it was.
And it came out and it was wonderful. And the one thing that I for sure think that I would like recommend to all the viewers is they should apply for Shark Tank, because different people that I know that have been on Shark Tank, what they always talk about, it's not just the deal that happens or doesn't happen there. It's all these people reach out to you because you're a made person once you're on Shark Tank, because it really does validate you. And if these sharks are saying this is what we think the critique is, this is what you should change, it gives you an opportunity to change it.
Right.
And I've heard, it's several months after you're there that it actually airs. Mm-hmm. So it gives you as an entrepreneur who's always fixing, changing, reworking, rebranding to make all those adjustments. So when people meet you, when the world sees your episode, well, you've implemented whatever that they suggested for you to do.
Yeah.
And if you got their money, all the better.
Right.
But even if you didn't, right? Because you're saying that, you talk to Mark every week or you're reporting back to him, he's going to have ideas. There's going to be opportunities that'll come up. And he wants you to succeed, not only because financially it's good for both of you.
Sure.
He's investing in you as a person, not just as a commodity.
Yeah.
And like I think we all feel that as viewers of that show.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you like one thing, if you're recommending everyone tries for Shark Tank, so there was one thing that I had going, which I would recommend everyone who's thinking about applying have done, is there was one time that I went to some outdoor mall area and I was giving out samples, and my husband just on the iPhone was recording me giving it, people going, oh my God, it's so good. And then me going, there's no meat in there, and wowing people. So we edited that up and made a cute little video that was on the homepage of the website. And so it was that plus me going, I'm Mrs. Goldfarb and I come from 100 years of ba ba ba. And we showed a picture of my great grandpa, so that when the Shark Tank, casting person is checking you out, they're like, that's my segment. It's already done for me. So if you're thinking of applying, get a cool video made, pop it on your homepage, and you're pretty much good to go.
That's a great idea, because you're basically creating your own brand. And if you're not on Shark Tank, you still have made the brand. That's stuff that's going to help you either way.
It's great anyway, exactly.
And then off of Shark Tank, I know you guys have done rounds of raise, you've raised money. So for the viewers, like what can they do? Obviously, they can go out to your website, buy stuff, throw really fun parties with sandwiches, right? Who doesn't love these? Earlier today we get to some clubs, some of your turkey sandwiches. So they can do all of that. But if somebody is watching, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to help her. What's the best thing they could do for you? Like post photos, have family things. Is there Mrs. Goldfarb's Deli on the way?
So as
can
far
we
as
get
like
people
our
to franchise
own
out there?
brick and mortar, well, we're actually working on a ghost kitchen concept right now that we're going to be launching in 9 LA locations and 10 New York locations, where it's going to be a full menu of all Unreal Deli subs with plant-based cheese and veggies and all sorts of delicious builds with vegan cookies you can order and like a full vegan deli. But it's going to happen through kind of like the Ghost. And then we're now getting all this grocery expansion, so like thousands and thousands of stores. So as far as, helping, just eating, sharing the word, if you eat something, if you make a great build of a sandwich and take a photo and tag us, that means the world to our, our audience and our viewers. But I also want to make myself available to help the vegan world and to help the young, up and coming entrepreneurs. I very much believe that this food needs to feed the whole world, and that the only competition is getting like the animal stuff out of there. There's no competition. It's like, how much more of this can we bring into the world? So I want to be a resource, and I appreciate you even saying that in the first place.
Well, one of the things that I love is in this space. Years ago, I had two good friends, Caitlin and Lisette.
Okay.
They wanted to start a restaurant that has food from. They did Peace Corps together. They wanted food from all over the world,
Cool.
and I said, I love the idea. So I set up meetings for them with owners, like Kevin Boylan, who
Yep.
with Veggie Girl, which she's in Veggie Girl for you guys.
Yep.
Doomy, Ron from Sun Cafe.
Sure.
All these owners met with these two women. They hadn't raised a penny. Like they just had an idea. And Kevin Boylan, especially from Veggie Girl, said, "It's going to be a lot of work. It's not going to be easy, but I hope you succeed because I want to go to your restaurant at least once a week."
Right.
And he was so much encouragement. And he's one of the owners of one of the biggest chain, I think 38 locations now. But like for them, it meant so much. And they've gone on to do a bunch of other amazing stuff. But I feel like for those young entrepreneurs, to meet people that encourage you meant so much.
Totally.
And I feel like for you, right? For you to talk to Paige and Jane really helped you, right?
Yeah.
The first commercial kitchen.
Yep.
So for you, you're excited to help do that for other people and
Absolutely.
like help lead them in the direction as much as you can. You're busy
sure.
with your family and own work, but if you can help pass them along, that's everything you want to do.
That's everything I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm just very much. I feel like just such a tremendous bit of gratitude that I get to even like sit in this position, run this company, do this, and I absolutely want to encourage, empower women, mothers, people, any crazy vegans out there like ourselves. How they can grow something and make something real that can really help the world.
In closing, there's something that I have to say to you.
Please.
When I saw interviews, we've talked before, but I saw these interviews that you did. Your Judaism and your faith and your love for people is so obvious. Like it comes through. You're thinking about helping people, helping animals. Like it's so part of you.
Yeah.
That what jumped out to me is I want people to be more religious and less spiritual. Everyone is always like they want to be spiritual, but they kind of make up rules as they go along.
Sure.
The thing about people that are religious is like they actually are like there's rules. And one of it is don't kill, don't hurt, don't lie. There's an ethics tied towards their faith. And in you, I see this person who's like, you have your ethics. And it's about justice for everyone, right? Social justice for people, for animals.
Totally.
And it resonates to you. Because I think for a lot of us, we get frustrated with people that are like frou-frou religious or they're spiritual and there's not always ethics.
Yeah.
But people that are like, it's such a part of their DNA. I can't imagine, and we talked about it earlier today, you love to have clothes that are reused because you don't want to be involved with child labor. I think that's such an extension of your being. You want to make sure you do no harm to the best of your ability in every way across the board.
Right, like I think this vegan thing is like, I feel like if you're already vegan, then like, of course you believe that like not only do Black Lives Matter, that they should be loved and cared for and cherished, and of course you don't want for people to be sweating, children, people on like 25-hour shifts like making clothing. It's like I don't want to be in on any of that. Like I've already said that like the animals need to be treated with so much love, so of course we need to care about these other elements in our life. So thank you for saying that, and I keep trying to up my game with that, because even like the things we buy like at Target and from China and this and that, it's like I want to keep getting like more authentic and true about my purchasing power, and what good we can do by buying the right kinds of things.
What's funny when I see you, it's that your message is universal, you're accepting for everyone, but you become more and more Amish or Hasidic Jewish or whatever, right? You're more extreme in your own personal life, but it's not extreme, it's in alignment with your value system. So you're like getting closer to your values, which the outside world are like, well, just go buy it from Target, like why are you worrying about it? But you're like, everything should matter. And you're so glued to that, where you still love and care for people. If they're going to go to Target, or they don't have a lot of money, they go to 99-cent store, they're going to fast food. You're like, okay, well, we'll have this there, but if we can all work towards consciousness on every level, it moves the whole world along.
Oh, that's so well said.
You're raising wonderful kids. I get to meet them earlier. Your husband, what a jewel. Like he's been so supportive in your journey. So lastly, what is it like for you to have gone on this journey and be with a partner who wasn't vegan yet, but he went on that journey with you because he loved and supported you and believed in it.
It's really interesting because I did become like very religious. I was like wearing long skirts and I was much more orthodox for a little bit, and then I started becoming like a little less observant, but even more like heart-filled and like such love of God and the world, even more so. And so I remember wondering like, how am I going to find like the right kind of person?
Or the right dog.
Yeah, or the right dog, perfect little doggy. Yeah. But yeah, Eric is such a beautiful blend of someone who's like practical in the world, but also has like some really good spiritual sensibilities. When he was first introduced to me, my girlfriend who introduced us said he never complains about anything, and I was like, that's a holy guy right there. So it's not really true now that I've been married to him 10 years, but it was nice to hear it on the opening remarks anyway. Yeah, you know, look, it's definitely a balancing act, you know, having the family, having 3 kids. I have a 2-year-old on top of some bigger kids, and you know, to make sure everyone gets the right amount of attention. I will say that going back to my Jewish thing, that celebrating Shabbat, which is a day that it doesn't just rhyme with your name, it's also a special day where we like kind of disconnect from both work stuff and even tech stuff and the hustle and bustle and rat race, if you will, of the world, to be able to kind of like turn off a lot of the external stimuli so that you can really go inside and you can really like nourish your like inner spiritual life. So I try to read 1 hour of like enlightening Torah type of books throughout that 25-hour Shabbat period. I'm very like glued to my kids during that time. It's like a big family time. It's a time to like cook, have delicious foods, obviously vegan, but having this one day helps me to like, you know, get in touch with my spirituality, turn off the business, get close to my family. And honestly, it's helped me so many times of like where let's say I'm working through a problem, how to cook a certain thing or how to deal with a certain account. A lot of times I'll take that whole day off, and that like by Saturday night or Sunday, I'm like, I know how to handle that now. I know exactly what to do now. I remember from blah, blah, blah. It like comes to you like new inspiration when you kind of like have that like empty space a little bit. So got to give it up to Shabbat and Prabhat.
Thank you, Jen. It's so wonderful we get to spend this time together.
So wonderful.
So for everybody out there, what website do they go to?
You're so special. My website is unrealdeli.com.
And then people, there's a map where they can learn where they can order your stuff in all the different states and stores, but they can also buy it and have it shipped to their very doorstep.
You can order it online. Don't hate us if you see some of the pricing, because to ship a cold box and FedEx with ice packs and whatever, it's definitely much more reasonable in quantity, but like the little boxes, it's not my favorite. Anyway, in the stores, it's much more reasonable, of course, and we don't have to ship it, but that's a quick, convenient way to get it, certainly.
I mean, the best solution is they should fly to California, bring an empty suitcase.
Come over, meet me, have dinner.
And then buy a bunch of stuff. You'll sell it at cost to them, and then they can ship it back.
Yeah, or follow us on Instagram or Facebook, because we're posting good, delicious, amazing looking sandwiches all the time, and we're having fun.
Certainly for people out there that are tied to any chains or big delis, reach out to Mrs. Goldfarb and her social media team, and then, because you guys are always looking to get into more places, and if it's something that, if it's a new market, like when you're going to a new state, if you have 10 stores set up, it's easier to go in. If you have multiple than just go into one.
Certainly, yeah.
So they're all your little, like, helpers. Like, everybody out there can help you get more people to learn about this.
And let me be your little helpers. That's the whole point of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just keep it flowing.
That's so great. Thank you.
You're so
I love spending time with you.
This guy.
Out there, I'm in trouble.
You guys are lucky. You're hooked in with this guy. This is something else here. I was so impressed when I'm still so impressed, obviously. Tell us something. I want something out of you.
No, really, only that I was really upset when I met you in real life, because I wish I would have met you like 3 or 4 years ago, because to see your journey and to hear about who you were and what you're doing, because I get so excited. I mean, I'm so lucky I had to meet the founders of so many like products early on.
Yeah.
And then you see a few years later, you look up, like, you know, I knew the Veggie Roll guys in 2007.
Right. Wow.
And then Seth at Tofurky, and, you know, they just launched some new stuff. And then Just Mayo and these companies. It's like I get to see idea phase, I get to see these people national. And to think like all the steps they do, it's so heartwarming. And I think we're so fortunate in Los Angeles because we get to see so many of those people come here. So I know you and I are going to be the same. We're going to help all these people grow, and we want to see this consciousness of food and humanity all grow. And then we've already talked before that I mean, Mrs. Goldfarb had a lot of different charity events. So, getting kids to try the food, getting, foster kids, getting adults. There's just so many charities that once they try your food, like it's going to be wonderful for their event. So I'm so excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being who you are and for highlighting stories like these and beautiful stories in the world of this world's becoming a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yay!
And we'll see you all next time. And again, we're here today with Jenny Goldfarb of Unreal Deli. So you guys check out our website. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.